Welcome to this holistic yoga class. It's a general yoga class, and today we're going to be focusing on the hip area, hip and pelvis area. This area is associated with creativity and flexibility, so we can bring more of that into our lives by working on the hips. So if you come to all fours, kneeling, if you like, you can have a blanket underneath your knees to support your knees. And we don't need many props for this class, but if you have a couple of blocks to hand, that would be a good thing. So from all fours, you're rocking forwards and backwards. So you may take your hands a little bit further forwards than your shoulders. Spread the fingers and thumbs, and particularly if you want to go further forwards into a kind of a modified plank pose with your knees still on the ground, then take your hands forwards so that when you come forwards and your body's in a kind of a slope from your knees to your head, your wrists are underneath your shoulders. So you don't really want your shoulders overshooting your wrists, because that puts a bit of a strain on your wrists. So you're rocking forwards into that modified plank. You can kind of claw the mat with your finger pads as you do that, which brings strength into the palms of your hands. And then as you go backwards, lengthening the fingers into the mat, kind of doming up in the center of the palms and lightening the load on your wrists and dropping back towards a stretched out child pose with the arms forwards. Go slowly. As you come forwards, it's good to work with an exhale, pulling your tummy in, pulling your pelvic floor in and up, and digging those finger and thumb pads in can be good. And as you come back, stretch your fingers and lift the tailbone. So breathe slowly and move slowly, and really lift and lengthen the tailbone, widen the sit bones as you go back. And just notice for yourself what's more tricky for you. Some people find it harder to engage the abdominals. Some people find it harder to flex at the hip joint. So focus on what feels more challenging. Spend more time in the flexing position, in child pose if that's more challenging. Spend more time with the plank pose as long as your wrists feel happy with it. And you can always come onto your fists with the knuckles down if the wrists are not liking that position. Okay, and then spend a little time in child pose with your hips up, but take your hips a bit higher than you might normally do in child pose, so you can really focus. Take the hands a little bit further forwards and focus on head on the floor, tailbone up, sit bones wide. Think about that hinging at your hips, and the wider that you can create the space between your sit bones, the more able you are to flex at your hips. So feel that relationship. The more you can lift your tailbone, and this also involves widening, opening the pelvic floor muscles, lengthening the pelvic floor muscles, also the more able you are to flex at your hips. So coming onto all fours, or towards all fours again, hands a little bit further forwards than your shoulders, spreading with the fingers, leaning onto your knuckles with fists if your wrists don't like it. And then we're taking the right knee, these are called knee circles. The right knee is lifting out to the side and circling backwards. So you could lift it a little bit forwards and then up and out to the sides and then back and then circling down. Keep the knee off the floor and circle it. Keep the knee bent at a right angle and circle it as high up as you can go, as far forwards, as high up out to the side. See if you can bring the knee up in line with your hip as you go out to the side and back and down. Good, good, good. So forwards, tucking in, up and back. This is an amazing exercise for your glutes. Really, really good for your glute medius and glute maximus muscle. Keep the knee at a right angle and keep squeezing, and make sure you're circling backwards. So the motion is forwards, tucking in, out to the side, circling up, circling back, so your sole of your foot faces the ceiling, and then circling in towards your chest and forwards again. Could do a few more of these. Don't straighten the leg as you go back. Keep it bent at a right angle. Sole of the foot up towards the ceiling. Good. Finish one more. And then walk your hands over to the left side and take a child pose, so your side stretch child pose. You could lean your forehead onto your left forearm and stretch your right arm over to the left, coming up onto the finger pads and straightening the elbow of the right arm. So you really feel a powerful stretch. Breathing into that side, into the hip and the lower back, the QL muscle and the kidney area and the rib area, just making space and lengthening and breathing there. Good, good, good. Lovely work. Okay, and then coming back to center, and then the knee circle on the other side. Now, of course, if your hip feels uncomfortable doing the knee circles, just make the circles smaller and lower. But if there's no kind of pain, tweaks or twinges, it's just a kind of a muscular effort, then go as wide as you possibly can. So really make the biggest, slowest circle as you possibly can. Feel how your abdominal muscles have to work. Your chest faces the floor, your head faces the floor, abdomen faces the floor, and you're making these big circles. Thereby you have to use the glute medius muscle as you go out to the side and the glute maximus muscle as you kick up and back. Keep that back of the knee at a right angle. Keep the ankle flexed at a right angle as well. And keep moving. Really enjoy that connection with your glute muscles. Maybe about 3 more now. It's super good for you. Really amazing for your hips. Really amazing for inner thigh lengthening, abdominal strengthening. Great for back pain too. Really good. Excellent. Okay, so finish the one that you're on and then walk your hands over to the right, maybe resting on your right forearm and stretching your left arm up onto the finger pads of the left palm, of the left hand, left fingers, and lift the elbow and lengthen through that left side. So you've really got a powerful spaciousness going on in that left hand side of your body, in the kidney area, rib area, lower back area, all the way down to the hip. Breathing into those places. Really find that openness and that length. Lovely work. Okay, and then coming back to center, we're going to set up for dog pose. So if you take your index fingers a little bit forwards with your hands of your shoulders, index fingers pointing forwards, the other 3 fingers kind of fanning out to the side a little bend in the elbows, little drop back of your elbows behind your wrists, and then tuck the toes. And leading with the tailbone, so be interested in your spine being long and straight, not necessarily your legs. And lift the tailbone and lift the tailbone up, 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 as high as it will go. Really lengthen through, particularly the lower back, lifting the tailbone and decompressing the lower spine, particularly the lumbar spine, decompressing out of the sacrum. Press the ground away with the fingers and thumbs and just start to feel that beautiful length that you can create on either side of the spine, the strength in your legs, the strength in your arms, pressing the ground away, feeling the abdominal muscles just gently drawing in, so that creates space in your hip joints and support for your hip joints when your abdominal muscles, the deeper abdominals, are drawing in. Excellent work. And then exhale, have a rest in child pose. Perhaps take your hands, palms facing upwards. Feel that external rotation of your upper arm bones starts to activate your upper back muscles. The thumbs are reaching down towards the ground. The little fingers curling up towards the ceiling and the fingers spreading wide. And if you really spread wide in the fingers, that activates the muscles in the palms of the hands, that activates the muscles in the upper back. Lovely work, and we'll take a dog pose again. So turn the palms to face downwards. And tuck the toes under. And lengthening. Lengthening through the whole of the spine. And this time, I invite you to lift one of your legs. So if you lift, say, the right leg up and back, perhaps in line with your spine or just as high as it can go, and then bend that right knee and squeeze the right heel towards maybe the left buttock. So you're turning the knee out to the side, just as you did before, and lifting the knee up and out as high as it can go, squeezing that buttock muscle. Lovely, lovely on the right, and sending the heel towards the left buttock muscle, lifting the knee as high as you can go, opening the hip out, pressing into the long leg that's on the ground and the foot that's on the ground, lengthening there. And then square the hips up again and then rest back down. So you can take the foot down and then down into child pose. You can have the palms facing up or rest the head down on the ground or on your stacked up fists if the ground seems a long way away. Good, and then another dog pose, taking the hands down again, index fingers forwards, hands at least shoulder width apart, and tuck the toes under and lift the tailbone up, long spine. And then it's time to lift your left leg, and you're sort of remembering that first pose we started with, the knee circles, squeezing the heel towards the right buttock muscle, lifting and lengthening, taking the knee out to the side. Good, good, good. Lifting the knee up as high as you can go. Breathing there, pressing the ground away strongly with both hands. And you can play around with straightening the leg back behind you, with circling the knee up, just moving around and feeling the buttock muscles working. Okay, and then straightening that leg straight back, and then bringing the foot down, squaring the hips off and coming down and resting into child. Lovely work. Okay, coming back up to all fours, walking your hands back up your thighs so that you come to a high kneeling position, and then taking a step forwards with your right foot, hands on the right thigh, exhaling, coming up to standing, tucking the toes under, good, and then coming up into Tadasana. So feel that your hips, or notice that your feet are hip width apart, toes pointing forwards. And feel the inner balls of your feet, the balls beneath the big toes, outer balls of your feet, balls beneath the little toes, and the heels. These are the tripods of your feet. And you want to be connected down through these 3 points on each foot to gain a good steady balance in your standing poses. So from there, you're pressing those 3 points in each foot, pushing the ground away through those points. You'll find your legs energize, your thigh muscles switch on, pelvic floor muscles, abdominal muscles switch on, and you're lengthening up through your spine to the crown of your head. Think about the back of your waist being long, the back of your neck being long, but also the sides of your waist, the front of your waist lengthening, sides of your neck, front of your neck lengthening. And think about the head floating. It's like it's a lotus flower floating on the surface of a lake. There's no tension. It's just feeling soft and supported, long and relaxed. And then we're going to do tree pose. So start to shift your weight over onto your right foot. Think of that tripod, and then peel up the left foot and either bring the foot to the calf, inner calf, or to the thigh, whatever feels comfortable, inner thigh. You don't have to turn your knee out that much, 45 degrees is enough, and then reach your arms up and lengthen through the arms, lengthen through the spine. Take your drishti point. Notice that you're looking straight ahead of you at eye height, and feel those foot muscles really working. So the arches are working. You might need to really think about pressing down through the inner ball of the foot and using the inner leg. And there's a little engagement in the outer buttock muscle, glute medius muscle, which helps you to keep your hip directly aligned over your ankle on the standing leg. And the bent leg, you're taking that knee out and perhaps feeling a little bit of external rotation, glute medius work there as well. Breathing and lengthening. And if you topple over, don't worry, just come back up to your standing. Good. Feel long in both sides of the waist. Really good work. Okay, and then exhaling, coming down with the leg, down with the arms, and then back into your shavasana, back into your tadasana. We're not at shavasana yet. Back at your tadasana, and then you're shifting your weight over onto your left foot. Think about that tripod, inner ball, outer ball, heel, pressing down and away to energize that left leg, and then picking up your foot and placing it either on the inside, on the calf, or inside of the thigh. And you don't really want to put it anywhere near the knee, so you don't want to be pushing on your knee joint. Lengthen up through the arms, lengthen up through the spine. And feel that tripod really working, particularly the inner ball of your foot, so you really get the inner leg working. So you're taking the pressure out of the outer thigh and the outer hip, but there is a squeezing going on to stabilize the hip and stop it leaning out to the left. You're pulling in and up through the pelvic floor, through the abdominal muscles, and that also lessens the load on your left hip, your standing hip. Breathe here. Really use the abdomen, really lengthen the spine, reach up through each fingertip and thumb, and check that your gaze is straight ahead. Breathing there. So your main focus is really the standing leg and making sure that you're not leaning out into the hip and that you're supporting the hip. Breathing here. You can also enjoy that external rotation on the leg on the right. Lovely work. Feel all the strengthening in your ankle and your foot. And then taking the arms down on an exhale, taking the feet down. And then positioning yourself to line up to the long side of your mat with your legs wide. We're going to do warrior 2. So as wide as feels comfortable for you, perhaps a bit wider than you might think, unless you've got knee pain or hip pain. And then spinning on your right heel and bending your right knee, you might take your left toes in a bit. So ideally your left toes would line up with the middle of your kneecap. And then you're bending that right knee and making sure that the right knee is directly over the right ankle joint in line with second, third toe. To achieve that, if it feels like your right knee is rolling in, turn your pelvis more to the right until you can line that knee upwards. And then turn your rib cage, separate from your pelvis, turn your rib cage towards the front edge of your mat, towards, the long side of your mat. And then reach your arms up, lengthening, feel vertical in the spine, feel lengthening in the back of the waist, feel powerful in the upper back and upper chest, and then open the arms out, palms facing upwards. Let the elbows bend a little, let the shoulder blades slide down the back, pull the tummy muscles in, lower belly muscles pulling in, lower rib muscles pulling in to really lengthen your back. Really soften that curve in your lower back a little bit. Press the ground away strongly with your feet, with your heels firmly grounded. Reach into that outer edge of the left foot and gaze down towards your right middle finger. So feel that inner thigh lengthening on that right side inner thigh, and make sure that the knee is not rolling in. So you might need to turn the pelvis around towards the right a little bit to allow that knee to fully align properly over the second, third toes. Super important for your knee health that you don't hang out with your knee rolling in a bit. Breathing there. You want to feel that lengthening in the inner thigh. Lovely work. Okay, and then unbending that right knee, taking your toes to face forwards. You can bring your hands in your hips and then spin onto the left heel. Bend the left knee. Again, you're turning your pelvis a little bit around towards the left to help you align that knee. The right toes turn in a little bit, so your right knee lines up with your right toes, second, third toe. And then when you've got all that set in your lower body, press the ground away, push the ground away, so strong legs, and then turn your rib cage to the long side of your mat. Leave your pelvis behind and turn your rib cage towards the long side of your mat. Reach the arms up. Think about your spine being vertical, abdominal muscles drawing in, lower ribs drawing in. And then opening the arms out to the side. Checking that your knee's not rolling in on the left there. So again, you might turn the pelvis to the left, but the chest faces to the long side of the mat and your head faces completely to the left as far as you can go, to gaze down towards the middle finger of your left hand. Broad and wide across the chest, very powerful in your legs. You want to feel an inner thigh stretch on that left side. Breathing here. Pushing into the 3 points of both feet, inner ball, outer ball, heel, lengthening up through the spine. Good work. Lovely, lovely. So you can straighten that left knee and turn the toes to face forwards and bring the arms down. And then we'll move into triangle pose, another work for your hamstrings, particularly the inner hamstrings. So toes start pointing straight forwards, and then you're spinning on your right heel and taking your right foot out 90 degrees. Your left toes come in maybe about 45 degrees so that they line up with your knees. Your hips are facing off to the right 45 degrees. So that keeps your pelvis and the back of your pelvis, your sacrum, in a good position. Okay, so here I'd like you to pull up through your legs. So you're pressing down through those tripod points, inner ball, outer ball, heel, and you're lifting up through the arches of your legs, through the arches of your feet, through the arches of your legs, drawing in and up. It's like sap drawing up from the ground. Draw up from your pelvic floor all the way up towards your spine. Keep both legs straight and bring your right L shape into your hip crease, right hip crease. So index finger and thumb make an L shape. Bring that L shape into the hip crease and have an intention to keep your spine completely straight as you fold over that hip crease. So you're folding slightly forwards. That's it, just ever so slightly forwards. Good, good, good. And then sliding the hand somewhere down your inner thigh, inner knee, keeping the spine straight. Bring your left hand to your hip, bring your left hand to your rib cage and spin your rib cage up and round towards the left. Lovely work. And then you can reach that left arm up at a right angle to your body, palm facing forwards. Squeeze that left shoulder blade. So your endeavor is not to get as low down the right leg as possible. It's to keep both legs straight and strong and to keep your spine straight. So particularly the lower, the right side of your spine, the right side of your waist, absolutely straight. So some of you might have to come higher up the leg to keep that spine straight. It's not about getting down to the lower part of the leg. Breathe there. Draw the thigh bone up, right thigh bone up into the hip socket and slightly turn your pelvis round towards the right as your rib cage turns round towards the left. See if you can feel the two opposing movements. That's the secret of a happy child pose, a happy triangle pose. Okay, and then press down into your feet and slide up again. Good, toes pointing forwards. And then spin on your left heel, toes out 90 degrees. Your right toes come in about 45 degrees. You're pressing the ground away with the feet, energizing the legs, drawing up sap through the legs, through the spine. Good, and then making that L shape with your left thumb and forefinger, bringing the L shape into your hip crease. So it's not your hip crest, it's your hip crease where you fold at the top of your hips. And then you are folding forwards, a little bit over the leg. That's it. It's kind of at that angle of your pelvis. And then you're taking your right hand to your rib cage, turning your rib cage up and round towards the right. Good. And then sliding that hand down the leg. Palm can face forwards, or you can rest a hand lightly on the leg, but don't lean into it too much. And then open the right arm up towards the ceiling. Squeeze the shoulder blade towards the spine. Remember your intention to keep both sides of the spine long, particularly that underside waist is long. So you might need to slide a little bit up the leg to achieve that. Very good. Breathing there. Feeling your pelvis is turning a little bit down towards the floor, towards the left, and your rib cage is turning up towards the right. And just reflect to yourself, is one side easier than the other? Can you feel the lengthening in the left hamstring, inner hamstring in particular? Can you keep the big toe mound, inner ball of the foot on the left foot really grounded? Lovely work. Okay, and then sliding up, coming to upright, taking the toes to point forwards, the arms down, and then coming to the back of your mat and facing the front. We're going to do a high lunge pose here. So feet are hip width apart, and take a stride forwards with your right foot. Front knee is bent directly over the front ankle, and the back heel is lifted, so you're up onto the ball of the foot on the back foot. So what we're doing here is it's as if we're sliding down a wall. So when you lift your arms straight up, you want to keep your shoulders, head and pelvis all in a straight line, and you're pulling the arms down. It's like you're pulling down two ropes and bending the back knee and sinking down, but you're keeping the shoulders directly over the hips. That's really good. And then pushing back up again. You don't have to go all the way to the floor, just keep it a very small dip, particularly if you have any history of knee pain. And then coming down, pulling the arms down, bending the back knee, and then coming all the way up again. And you can push the ceiling up as you come up, make your hands into kind of fists and pull down as you sink down, bending the knee. And then push up, pushing up with the feet, pushing up with the hands. Good, and do about 3 more of those. It's a lovely lengthening for your back thigh, front thigh, your left quadriceps muscles, left front thigh muscles. Breathing there, pushing up, and then sinking down. Do 1 more. Lovely work. Only go as far down as feels nice for you, and then when you're ready to, you can take a step forwards and then come to the back of your mat again, and then take a stride forwards with your other leg. So left leg forwards, left knee bends directly over the front ankle. Reach the arms up. Remember, you're sliding down a wall, so you don't want to lean forwards, you don't want to push your weight forwards, keeping your weight back. Pushing up, that's it, and then pulling down, bending the back knee, so you're on the back ball of the foot, heel is lifted, pushing up, good, and then sinking down. So the front knee really doesn't move that much. It might move backwards, but it doesn't move forwards over towards the toes. That's it, and the back knee goes up and down, so it's like a lifting and a lowering. Maybe do 2 more. And it's up to you how low down you go with that knee, but no strain in the knee. Everything should feel really nice in the knee and the hip. Good work. And then take a step forwards and take your arms down. And then we're going to do warrior 3, which is a funny pose. It's good to see it as a comedy pose. So come towards the back of your mat. Another word for it is aeroplane pose. So if you take your feet a little bit wide, sort of hip width wide, maybe slightly wider, and then take a step forwards with your right foot. Good. Roll up onto the ball of the back foot, and then take your right hip directly over your right ankle and roll up onto the ball of the back foot, and then start to lift the back leg, keeping the leg straight. Tip forwards and reach your arms backwards, and the palms are facing each other. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, and you're kind of leaning into a long position. If you're confused here, just have a look at the photo guide sheet. Breathe here. Try to keep your hips in alignment, your sacrum level, and you can flex your back ankle joint, so you're pushing back through that back heel. You're really working that that left buttock muscle and the right glute medius to keep everything stable. Well done. Good, good, good. Excellent work. And then exhale, slowly coming down. You can stay longer if you want. And then come to the back of your mat. Good. Taking a step forwards with your left foot. Good. Rolling up onto the ball of the back foot, and then shifting your left hip over your left ankle joint, and then you're starting to lift the back leg. Remember to keep the pelvis level. It's a bit like Superman pose, where you have to keep the pelvis level when you're kneeling on the ground. Squeeze the shoulder blades, open the chest, lengthen through the spine. Notice how one side might be easier than the other side. Keep leveling out the pelvis as much as you can. Don't worry if you're wobbling. Don't worry if it's really difficult. It's really good work for your hips. Good for your abdominal strength, for your balance, for your feet. Wonderful. Really, really good. Excellent work. And then exhale coming down, and inhale coming up again to standing. Just stand in your standing pose there. Feel the strength in your legs, the power in your muscles in your feet and your ankles, power in your legs, power in your pelvis, and that feeling of being able to lift up out of your pelvis, using your deeper abdominal muscles to decompress there. Lovely work. Okay, and then we're going to come down to sitting. And sitting facing the long side of your mat, you might have a folded up blanket underneath your sit bones, and your legs are wide. So your legs are like a wide apart with the knees bent. It's like you've got a right angle between your thighs at the back of your knees and in your ankle joints. So just have a look at all those angles. A right angle between your thighs, a right angle at the back of your knees, and a right angle in your ankle joints. Okay, and you can take your arms behind you, particularly if you feel under a bit of pressure in your back. Take your arms behind you, and if you go as far back as you need to with your hands to feel comfortable in your back, so you can lean back a little bit. If it really does feel uncomfortable, this pose, you can do it lying down on your back. So do remember that. No tweaks, twinges or pain allowed, especially in your joints. So then you're rolling onto the outer edge of, say, your left leg. So the inner edge of your right leg comes down onto the ground, and the outer edge of your left leg comes down onto the ground. And then you might need to reorganize yourself so you're back with those right angles. So your left knee should be in line with your left hip, straight ahead in a straight line, and your right ankle should be in a right angle in line with your right knee. So if you're looking towards the shorter edge of your mat, your left knee should be in line with your left hip in a straight line. Good. Okie dokie. And then looking at your right leg, that should also be in a right angle with the right knee in line with the right hip and the right ankle in line with the right knee. in a right angle. Okay, and then go the other way, rolling onto the back of the heels and going all the way the other way. That's it. And then reorganize yourself so that your right knee is in line with the right hip, directly ahead of it as you look forwards onto the short edge of your mat, and right angle at the back of your knee and your ankle. And then keep going, rolling one way, rolling the other way, checking that your hips feel comfortable with that. This is called Z pose. And just feeling how there's a release in your hips, in the outer thighs, in your IT band, which is kind of tensioned by a little muscle which often does too much, called the TFL. This is a really amazing exercise for the TFL releasing. So rolling perhaps over one way, good, and then rolling back the other way, maybe back to the left, and taking your hands, they either frame your knee, so if it feels like an enormously strong stretch for you, stay on the left side and frame the left knee so that your back is straight and you're leaning forwards. So your chest is going towards the thigh, not necessarily your head. So you're leaning forwards a bit, and that will bring you into the stretch a bit more. If it doesn't feel like enough of a stretch, you can walk your hands so you're leaning forwards over your shin, the middle of your shin. And if that doesn't feel enough, then you can lean forwards over towards your toes, towards your feet, and that will be enough for everybody. It's a strong stretch. So you choose, are you leaning towards your knee, your shin, or your toes, keeping the spine long, keeping the back of the neck long, keeping the ankle really flexed, and breathing. Ideally, your hip should be in line with your knee and kind of in line with your mat. Breathing there. Good work. Okay, and then coming up again, rolling onto your over your heels. That's it, your feet shouldn't move, and then you're coming into that right angle shape on the right side. Remember, knee in line with hip, hip at a right angle, knee at a right angle so that your ankle is in line with your knee, and then just leaning over that knee again. So it might be your right knee now, and your spine stays straight and you're leaning over. You might lean over the mid shin, you might lean over the foot. Just whatever feels good. You'll feel that special source of a stretch on the outer edge of your right thigh, right hip, maybe a bit in the glute. If you've got the sensation, then no need to lean too much forwards. It's more about the sensation and the shape that you make. Breathing with it. And do remember that you can always do this as a lying down wide leg twist if you prefer. Lovely work. Okay, and then coming back up to center. And then you're taking your left heel in towards your pubic bone. And your right leg is going out behind you, so a bent right knee. That's it. Good. Have a look at the photo for this one because it's pretty difficult to describe. So you're working with your right buttock muscle here, so put your hand on your right buttock muscle. Your left hand is out to the left supporting you, but try to keep your spine as straight as is comfortable. If you feel gripping in the hip or in the right hip, or it feels uncomfortable, you can slide your left hand more out to the left. But if you don't get any gripping, then keep your left hand quite close so you can keep your spine straight. Then I'd like you to squeeze your right buttock muscle, and that will turn your body round towards the left. Good. And then release that right buttock muscle, and then squeeze that right buttock muscle, and then release again, and then squeeze again. This is called the lighthouse. So it's from that right buttock muscle, and you can keep squeezing and releasing, that the spine is able to spin. So it doesn't really lean over towards the left, it spins and pivots towards the left. So keep your head as much as possible above your pelvic floor. Good work. And then you could take your right hand from the buttock muscle once you're sure that it's working. Take your right hand to the front of the left shoulder. Left hand might go a little bit further behind you, so it's at least in line with your hip. That's it. And then keep squeezing the buttock muscle and creating that turn. And you can remember it's a pivot, it's a corkscrewing motion. Release the buttock muscle, squeeze again, and then push with your finger so that that shoulder turns towards the back and then releases back to the front as the buttock releases down. Good. And you can turn your head towards the left as well. That's it. And then back. Good, as the buttock muscle releases down. Lovely work. Lighthouse pose. Good. Really use the hand to send that shoulder round to get that pivoting that happens in your rib cage. Lovely. Okay, and then take your hands and put them either side of your knee. You can come up onto your finger pads if you wish. And this is a bit like cat-cow, but obviously different leg shape. You're arching your back up and dropping your head, looking back towards you, and tucking your belly in and tucking your tailbone. You're looking up towards your eyebrows here, and then you're lifting your chest and lifting your tailbone, looking down at the floor, arching your back. So look down at the floor as you lift your chest and tailbone, and then press the ground away, scoop the belly in, push the ground away, and look up at your eyebrows. So think of cat-cow here, arching up, lifting the chest, lifting the tailbone, looking down at the floor. So lifting your chest forwards, lifting your tailbone up, and then pressing the ground away, curling under your tailbone and concaving your chest. So just do a few of those, flexing your spine. It'll obviously feel a bit asymmetrical because of the position of your feet. Good work, really well done. And then coming out of that and changing sides. So you're bringing your right heel in towards your pubic bone, center line. Left leg goes back. That's it. You can have your left ankle flexed or extended, whatever feels nice for you. And then put your left hand on your left buttock muscle, and right hand is supporting you to be as upright as possible. But if your hip feels grippy, take your hand further out to the right, and then squeeze that left buttock muscle and then release down. And often the left glute is less kind of engaged than the right glute, so you might take a bit more time here to feel that the left glute is really squeezing and gathering around the sit bone, really firming up underneath your hand, and then also really releasing as you bring the buttock down towards the floor. So the release is just as important as the engagement, because you can't engage if you can't release. So really notice that squeezing of the buttock muscle. Really notice the opening in the front of the thigh and the front of the hip crease on that left side as the buttock muscle squeezes. There's a lovely release in the hip. The buttocks really support the hips, so it's very, very important for us to work with them, engage them to support the hips and to support the lower back. Good, and it also really helps the pelvic floor when the buttock muscles are working. Good, so when you're sure that that left glute is working, you can take your left hand to the front of the right shoulder and pressing down through the foot a little bit and squeezing the left buttock muscle and pivoting around, corkscrewing around. Remember, you want to keep your head directly over the pelvic floor if you can. It's okay to lean out a bit if there's gripping in the side of your waist on the left side or in the side of the hip. Good, and just notice that your head can turn. So there's the small turn in your pelvis that comes from the glute, a bigger turn in your rib cage, and then a turn in your neck. So you can look over that right shoulder and feel that your neck kind of completes the twist. It's a very satisfying twist, but feel as if it's led by the buttock. The buttock is the driving force, left buttock, and that creates all the movement in the pelvis, in the rib cage, And there is a choice to move in your neck, but it's very soft movement in your neck. You don't need to strain it in any way. Lovely work. Beautiful. Okay, and then we're coming to that point where we're framing that right knee, so hands either side of the right knee, and then coming into that kind of cat-cow flexing of your spine. So when you curl your tailbone under, you're looking up at your eyebrows. When you lift your chest and lift your tailbone, you're looking down your nose. It's just to help your neck stay long, so pushing the ground away, scooping the tailbone under, scooping the belly in, looking up at your eyebrows, and then lifting the chest, maybe a little squeeze of the shoulder blades together. Good work. And then pressing the ground away, scooping in, and then lifting the chest, lifting the tailbone. Good. Looking down your nose and looking up at the eyebrows as you scoop in. Lovely work. Okay, and then from here I'd come to lying down on your back. We'll just do a simple cobbler pose to finish the class. So taking the soles of your feet together and the knees out to the sides. If you wish to support your knees on a bolster, on some cushions, on some yoga blocks, then by all means do. Take each toe together, each little finger together, so that each little toe together, so that the soles of the feet are facing each other and the knees are out to the sides. Palms are facing upwards. Feel that gentle lengthening in the inner thighs and the symmetry in the back of your pelvis, in your sacrum. You want to kind of adjust yourself so your sacrum's pretty level. You might interlace your fingers and place them behind your head and bring the elbows into shoulder width and lift the head and just check that you're symmetrical around your spine. You can lengthen the back of your neck nicely there and release the head down, and then palms facing up again and relaxing. Just let your body really absorb the energy of your breath. So you might draw your shoulder blades a little bit in and down so you can really broaden and widen across your collarbones, and then feel all that space, the space that the breath can move into in your rib cage, in your upper chest, around your shoulder blades and shoulder joints and underneath the collarbones, in between the ribs. Feel the space in the belly, and there's less space in the belly, it's more engaged, but you can really breathe down into the space in the hips and the pelvic floor, the space of the whole of the lower belly and pelvis. Just feel the restfulness of the pose after all the work. Allow your body to rest and absorb the prana, where I feel it's often most needed, in the hips and the shoulders and the spine. Lovely work. And then when you're ready to, coming into your Shavasana. It's just a short Shavasana on this practice. Be aware you can stay longer if you wish, and I invite you to do the longer relaxation practice. If not now, then at least later on in your day. Straightening the legs either over a bolster, over a sofa or a chair, or straight down on the floor. Just walking those shoulder blades away from your ears again. You might take another check to see if you're symmetrically aligned around your spine by lifting your head with your clasped hands again. And then letting go. Just letting the whole body absorb the prana so it moves homogeneously throughout the whole body. So it moves with equal kind of dispersion throughout the whole body. The breath can move all the way down to the toes, the feet, the ankles, the heels. The breath can move into the legs. calves, shins, the knees, the thighs. Breath, of course, moves in the hips and the belly, the pelvis and the back, the chest and the upper back. The breath moves all the way down into the shoulders, the elbows, the fingers and thumbs, and bathes the brain. The breath moves around in the head, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the face, relaxing the eyes back in their sockets, relaxing the neck and the throat. Good, just rest and feel your whole body breathing. Wonderful, and in your own time, making little wiggles in your fingers and your toes, maybe rolling the head a little bit from side to side. Stir slowly out from Shavasana. Have a little stretch, have a little yawn, maybe rocking, rolling. Wonderful. Namaste.